Not all travel trends are worth following in 2025. From overtourism to rising costs and even the decline of influencer travel, some trends might actually be making your trip worse. But don't worry. In this video, I'm breaking down the travel trends you'll want to avoid this year and what to do instead. So whether you're looking to avoid crowds, save money, or just be a smarter traveler, this video is for you. I even share a trend about how changes in weather are dramatically affecting where we travel. Let's dive into the biggest travel trends of 2025 and how to make the most of your adventures this year. Overtourism is something that has been affecting travel over the last few years and is a trend that will continue in 2025. Overtourism happens when too many visitors flood a destination, overwhelming infrastructure, damaging the environment, and making life harder for locals. Think of places like Venice or Barcelona, where locals have been protesting mass tourism. Or Bali, where new tourist taxes are being introduced to manage the crowds. In Barcelona, even some tourists felt the wrath of squirt guns from locals trying to send a message. Tourist taxes and entry fees are becoming more regular to help plan and accommodate for the busy seasons of travel. We are even starting to see the restriction of short-term rentals, which has already happened in places like Hawaii, New York City, and Atlanta. Overtourism is not really a new thing, but is something that has been a point of concern more recently with the increase in travel post-pandemic. In 2025, with travel back in full force, some places are struggling to keep up. But the good news is you don't have to contribute to the problem, and you can still have an incredible trip. And here's how. First, you can explore lesser-known destinations. Due to social media, everybody tends to gravitate towards the same places. But what a lot of people don't understand is that there are places with the same benefits as the popular spots, but with way fewer people. For example, maybe instead of places like Bali, you should try the island next door called Lombok. Same awesome waterfalls and volcanoes and culture, but way fewer people. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't visit these once-in-a-lifetime bucket list spots just because they are crowded. That would be very hypocritical of me. But you should try to be mindful of your impact when traveling to these more popular tourist communities. You can visit popular tourist spots during off hours, like early in the mornings or late in the evening. Personally, Meg and I really love the early mornings, as most people don't like to get up early and you might just have the place all to yourself. I would also recommend supporting local shops and restaurants instead of the global chains. That way your tourist dollars stay within the community and don't end up leaking out to a big corporation, where then the local community really has no buy-in to accommodate tourists. Another way to not contribute to the overtourism issue is to be just a good tourist. Respect the culture, dress appropriately, and be mindful of local customs. Like in Japan, remembering to remove your shoes before you enter a house, or being quiet on public transportation. Thinking about these few things regarding overtourism will not only help you have a better experience as a traveler, but also help you lessen the impact we have on these local tourist communities and these popular travel spots across the world. The next travel trend that might not be so popular in 2025 is influencer travel. Influencers have really shaped the way we travel in the modern day. With the rise of social media like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, we are exposed to more of this world than we ever thought would have been possible. And one of the positives of this influencer travel trend is that we are inspiring people to get out and travel more. Get out and see what this amazing world has to offer, which is amazing. But there's one major reason why I think in the future we will not solely rely on influencers to plan our travels. Because there is so much info and content from influencers, myself included, we are seeing a decline in trust and authenticity from the recommendations of influencers. And I don't believe this is because influencers are not being truthful or authentic, or at least most influencers. What I'm trying to explain here is basically the Instagram versus reality trend. Because more and more of the experiences of what people see online do not match with the experiences they actually have for themselves. People are craving a new way to experience travel. Meaning, we will probably see a rise in shifting away from curated Instagram-worthy experiences towards authentic and meaningful travel. Now, I'm not trying to be negative on influencers. Personally, I love sharing my recommendations. It's actually like my favorite thing to do when I get home from a trip is tell people about it. But I think you need to understand that my experience is going to be different from your experience. I think a lot of people get disappointed because what they see online doesn't match up with the experience that they actually have. Like I said, that Instagram versus reality. I think we need to put more emphasis into enjoying the process and the journey and being okay that everybody is going to have a different experience, even if we're doing the exact same thing. For example, you might see something online where somebody's at the Trevi Fountain and it's this gorgeous night with nobody there and they have the space all to themselves, and then you go visit the Trevi Fountain during the day and you realize there's like 1 million people here. It's going to be somewhat disappointing, but if you can disconnect from the expectation and just enjoy the process of being where you are and just taking everything in as it comes, I think you're going to be a much better traveler and you're going to enjoy your experiences a lot better if you can disconnect from those expectations that you gather online. So rather than using influencers as the expectation, use them as a guideline to help plan your trips, because ultimately, travel you have to experience for yourself, not let somebody else tell you how it's gonna be. And that's what's so great about travel. I would also love to hear from you down in the comments. Do you think influencer travel is helping or hurting tourism? Also, have you ever visited a place that you saw online and it wasn't really what you expected? Or maybe you went in with too much expectation? Let me know down in the comments if you've ever had that experience. The next trend you can expect in 2025 is to pay more for travel. But not to worry, I'm gonna tell you how to avoid this. Unfortunately, travel costs will continue to rise in 2025 due to over-tourism, which we already talked about, fuel cost, general inflation, and the increase in demand for shared experiences like concerts. According to Vacasa, 47% of travel is planned around a central event like a concert, driving up prices around those types of events. The good news is that there are lots of ways to avoid the increase in some of the costs around travel in 2025. First, and probably the best way to save money on your travel, is to be flexible. Flexibility is key. This means being flexible with your destinations. So instead of the more expensive Hawaii, maybe try Vietnam, which is much cheaper. Being flexible with your flight times. You can save a lot of money booking flights off midday peak travel times. You might just lose a little sleep, which for us is totally worth it. Having the flexibility to travel in the shoulder season, or in other words, not peak travel times. In the shoulder seasons, you will most likely experience much cheaper prices on everything. You also might get an experience that you never would have expected. Still to this day, one of our favorite trips we took was to Italy in the shoulder season, and we got to experience places like the Trevi Fountain, as I already mentioned, all to ourselves. Having the flexibility to travel slow. Slow travel will save you a ton in costs, but will also help you appreciate and build stronger connections with the places you do visit. If you can, even being flexible in one of these areas can save you lots of money. Now, let's say you're not flexible at all, or you don't have the privilege of being flexible. What are some other ways you can avoid these costs in 2025? Well, as I mentioned earlier, shop local for some authentic experiences. Go to local restaurants, book locally owned excursions, and do some of your own research to stay away from some of the more mainstream tourist attractions. We experienced this when we booked our guide company for our Everest Base Camp trek. We decided to go with a locally owned company, which not only saved us quite a bit of money, but also gave us some cultural experiences that we never would have expected. So don't get too discouraged when you start to book your travel in 2025 and some of these costs are quite high. There are tons of ways to avoid this, and it should not stop you from seeing the world. You might just have to plan your trip in a little different way than you usually would, but keeping in mind some of these things that I mentioned will save you some money. If you want to learn more about how to save money on your travels, I would suggest watching this video here. Coolcations. Have you ever heard of it? Well, Coolcations are a growing trend due to the weather. This trend is not really something that you need to avoid, but is for sure something that you need to be aware of so you can better plan your travels. Weather is affecting the way we travel, and most of us don't even realize it. It just kind of happened. In an article recently written by the Points guys, they say that destinations with cooler climates are seeing an increased demand compared to the warmer destinations that typically come to mind when travelers think summer vacation. For example, from June to August last year, places like Finland saw a 150% increase in travelers, Norway 89% increase, and Iceland a 62% increase. All while places like Italy, France, and Greece also a decrease in demand due to the hot summer temps and extreme weather. This really goes for places all over the world, not just for Europe. With the changing climate and the demand for these northern destinations, you are probably going to need to plan a bit more in advance as they're becoming more and more popular. Also keep those other things in mind that I mentioned earlier so that you can make your trip more affordable. I feel like these cold destinations about 10 years ago were not even on people's radars compared to places like Spain or Italy. But now these cold weather destinations are the places to be. So plan your Coolcations, but do it a little earlier and be conscious of your impact. Some of these travel trends at first glance may seem a bit negative or somewhat disheartening. And there are certainly going to be plenty of challenges ahead as travel continues to get more and more popular. But that said, there are so many good things coming for travel as well, like more sustainable travel options, the rise of slow travel, focusing on authentic and local experiences, easier and more flexible booking policies, and rising popularity of the off-beaten path destinations, just to name a few. So there you have it, some of the biggest travel trends to watch out for in 2025 and how to avoid them. If you enjoyed this video and found it valuable and helpful, please give it a thumbs up, as well as subscribe to our channel for more content like this. We will see you in the next video.